Someone asks if you're free this weekend. You are. You were looking forward to doing nothing, but the word no sits in your throat like a stone. So you say yes. You say yes and immediately feel the weight of it. The calendar square fills up. The quiet Saturday you needed disappears. And now you're angry at yourself for not being able to say a single two-letter word. Except you're not really angry at yourself. You're guilty. Guilty for even wanting to say no in the first place. Like the desire to protect your time makes you selfish. Like your boundaries are an inconvenience you're inflicting on people who deserve better. This isn't people-pleasing. It's not even about being nice. It's deeper than that. It's the feeling that saying no makes you a bad person. That refusing a request, even a small one, even when you're exhausted, is a moral failing. And no matter how many times you tell yourself it's okay to have limits, the guilt finds you anyway. Every single time. Let me say this first. If you feel guilty for saying no, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're not destined to be a doormat for the rest of your life. What you're experiencing is a psychological response that was built into you, likely years ago, by people and systems that needed you to prioritize their needs over your own. And your brain learned that lesson so well that now, even when those people aren't in the room, even when the request is unreasonable, your nervous system still reacts like saying no is dangerous. Like it will cost you something you can't afford to lose. So let's talk about where this guilt actually comes from and why it feels so much bigger than the situation in front of you. The first thing to understand is that guilt about saying no is almost never about the present moment. It's about the past. Specifically, it's about what happened when you said no as a child. Because children say no all the time. It's one of the first things they learn. No, I don't want to. No, I don't like that. No, stop. And depending on how the adults around you responded to those no's, your brain either learned that boundaries are safe or it learned that boundaries are punished. If saying no led to anger, withdrawal, guilt tripping, or being labeled as difficult, selfish, or ungrateful, your brain didn't just remember that moment. It encoded it as a threat. It learned that your needs create conflict, that your refusal makes you unlovable, that the cost of protecting yourself is other people's disappointment. And because a child's survival depends on being loved and accepted by their caregivers, your brain made a calculation. It decided that saying yes, even when it hurt, was safer than saying no. That's not a character flaw. That's adaptation. That's your brain doing exactly what it needed to do to keep you emotionally safe in an environment where your boundaries weren't welcome. And now, even though you're an adult, even though the people asking you for things aren't your parents or teachers or childhood authority figures, your nervous system still remembers. It still responds like saying no will cost you love, safety, belonging. Think about the last time you said no to someone and felt that immediate drop in your stomach. That wasn't just guilt. That was your body preparing for rejection, for punishment, for the emotional consequences it learned to expect years ago. Your brain wasn't overreacting. It was protecting you from a threat it believes is real, even if logically you know it's not. Here's an example. Someone at work asks if you can take on an extra project. You're already stretched thin. You know you should say no. But the thought of saying it makes you feel like you're letting the team down, like you're not a team player, like you're selfish for prioritizing your own workload over helping someone else. So you say yes. And then you resent the project. You resent the person who asked. You resent yourself for not having the courage to refuse. But the guilt for saying no would have felt worse. So you carry the resentment instead. What's happening here is that your brain has categorized no as a relational threat. It believes that refusing a request will damage the relationship, that people will think less of you, that you'll be seen as difficult or unhelpful or cold. And because your brain is wired to prioritize connection over almost everything else, it would rather have you suffer in silence than risk being rejected. That's not irrational. That's survival. But here's the part nobody tells you. The guilt you feel when you say no isn't actually about the other person. It's about you. It's about the story you've internalized about what kind of person you're supposed to be. And that story almost always includes the belief that good people don't have needs, that good people are endlessly available, that good people sacrifice. And if you're not doing that, if you're choosing yourself, then you must not be good. That belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from a culture that rewards self-sacrifice, especially in women, especially in caregivers, especially in people who were raised to believe that their value is tied to how much they give. And your brain absorbed that message so completely that now, saying no feels like a betrayal of your identity, like you're becoming someone you don't want to be. Let's talk about what happens as you get older, because this guilt doesn't stay the same. It shifts. In your 20s, you might say yes to everything because you're still trying to prove yourself. You're still building your place in the world, and saying no feels like closing doors you might need later. In your 30s, the guilt gets more complicated. You start to notice the resentment. You start to see the pattern, but you still can't stop, because now you've built a life around being the person who always says yes, and changing that feels like letting everyone down. By your 40s, the guilt often turns inward. You're angry at yourself for not learning this lesson sooner, for still feeling this way, for knowing better but not being able to do better. And the truth is, the behavior doesn't just disappear with age, it evolves. You learn to say no in some areas while still feeling crushing guilt in others. You set boundaries at work but not with family, with friends but not with partners. The guilt finds the places where you're most afraid of being abandoned, and it lives there. And this is where it gets interesting, because the guilt isn't just emotional, it's physiological. When you think about saying no, your body responds, your heart rate increases, your chest tightens, your stomach knots. That's your nervous system activating a stress response. It's the same response you'd have if you were actually in danger. Because to your brain, saying no times is times danger. It's the threat of disconnection, of being too much or not enough, of being left alone. So when you say yes, even when you don't want to, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're regulating your nervous system, you're bringing yourself back to baseline. You're choosing the discomfort of resentment over the terror of rejection, and in that moment, it makes perfect sense. Resentment you can manage. Rejection feels like it might destroy you. Your brain has learned that saying yes is a form of control. It's a way to manage other people's emotions so you don't have to manage your own fear. It's a way to stay safe in relationships by making yourself indispensable. By being the person who never says no, you become the person people can't afford to lose. And that feels like security, like proof that you matter, even if it's killing you slowly. But here's what your brain isn't telling you. The guilt you feel when you say no is often bigger than the actual consequences of saying it. Most of the time, when you finally do say no, nothing terrible happens. The person accepts it, the relationship survives, the world doesn't end. But your brain doesn't update its threat assessment based on that information. It holds on to the old story, the one where saying no leads to punishment, and so the guilt persists, even when the evidence says it shouldn't. Think of the guilt as an old friend, not a good friend, but a familiar one. It's been with you so long that you don't know how to exist without it. It's the voice that reminds you to be careful, to not take up too much space, to not ask for too much. And in some strange way, it's comforting. Because as long as you feel guilty, as long as you're monitoring yourself, you know you're not becoming the kind of person you're afraid of being. Selfish, cruel, indifferent. The guilt is your proof that you care, that you're trying, that you're not the bad guy. And your brain clings to that proof because it's terrified of the alternative, of being someone who says no without feeling anything, of being someone who disappoints people and doesn't lose sleep over it. That version of you feels dangerous, foreign, wrong. So the guilt stays. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because it's serving a function. It's regulating your sense of self. It's protecting you from becoming someone you don't recognize. It's the blanket you wrap around yourself when the world asks you to choose between your needs and someone else's. And even though it's heavy, even though it hurts, it's yours. And it's familiar. And familiar feels safer than free. If you feel guilty every time you say no, you're not failing at boundaries. You're not broken. You're carrying a belief system that was built into you before you had the language to question it. And that system is trying to keep you safe the only way it knows how, by making sure you never risk being unwanted. That's not weakness. That's your brain trying to protect a version of you that needed protection once, and maybe still does. And that's okay. You don't have to fix it. You just have to know it's there, and that it makes sense, and that you're not alone in it.